What's up people, it's Sanchi again. Welcome. Today I'm gonna be explaining you how to make 4PF beats specifically for Lil Baby. So let's just get right into it. One of the main elements to Lil Baby beats is a piano. It doesn't need to be too emotional, but it doesn't also need to be happy. You just kind of have to find a sweet spot between those two. You need to make it as suitable as possible for orchestral elements like violins or flutes and all of that. So for this beat, I'm working on an A sharp minor scale, but I'm going to pitch it down later on. I started with an A sharp, which is the root note, and each bar I'm actually descending one note, meaning that I'm not actually using the same 4-bar loop. I'm changing it up every now and then to add more variation to the piano so it doesn't get as boring. One of the main key elements is to actually have a different bass line each time. If I were to keep it like this, it wouldn't be as good of a loop as it was. So this is pretty much the most important part. Keep the bass lines simple but different throughout the whole melody. One of the other elements is that I add an alternative ending, which is something I do a lot and you'll see it pretty often with everybody else. As far as the top melody, I just drew in some stuff and I made sure that the melody is consistent and it's not complicating. As you can see, there's only one note playing each time. These two notes are not playing at the same time. That's what I mean. Obviously the bass note is not just one hit, but it hits 16 times each bar, so these are 1/16 of a note. And at the end, to add more variation, again I end it in a high note rather than keeping it on F. So this is what the piano itself sounds like. As far as the sound selection is concerned, I made sure to pick an emotional piano with a lot of reverb, and I added more reverb myself on top of it and took some highs, some lows, and some around 300 Hertz because pianos are mostly really muddy around 300 to 500, and this is where it was the busy part, so I took it all out. Second thing I added was the simple violin. It's more of a stab than a consistent violin, and it adds some dramatic effects before every switch up. So as y'all remembered, every 2 bars I changed the bass note, and these all hit before the bass note changes. So it kind of indicates that there's going to be a change right after the violins. It adds more dynamic to the loop itself. And at the end, again, I added more alternation, and this is what it sounds like. Also, I made sure that the notes are descending each time. These notes right here are lower than these ones because the bass note was also going down, so I followed that and I just kept it pretty simple after that. Effects wise, I don't have anything on this because the plugin itself already had too much going on. I added a low cut so it wouldn't fight for the same frequencies as a piano. The third and the most important element of all is the flute. I'm saying this because it adds a lot of character to the loop itself, so let's hear it by itself and then I'll go through the effects. Again, I followed the root notes, so every 2 bars I descended the melody. But one of the main things I like to do with the flute, these quick notes, I added these to give it a little bit of a realistic feeling. As you can see, they're not even on the grid. I also have this violin here. Compared to the other one, this is an ongoing violin, which I think is called a legato. It's just adding a little bit of a flavor in between. So let me play it for you. I didn't really too much for these sounds because they sounded pretty good by themselves. I added a little bit of reverb for the flute. I wanted to keep the lows as empty as possible to be able to fill with the 808. I also have this pretty simple bass line which comes in during the verse because otherwise it was going to be just too bare and I don't want that, and it sounds like this by itself. And what I added on it is this decapitator plugin, which brings it a little bit of a beef to it, I guess, because that's what the preset is called. I just have the bass balancer EQ for FabFilter Pro Q. I made sure to took the highs out because this is where all the instruments are sitting at. As far as arrangement, I just made sure that not everything was playing at the same time. Gave everything some space in between. So this is where the violins and the piano play. This is where the flute plays. This is where the bass line plays. And this is the piano itself. I kept the piano going on for the whole thing because it's the main element. So now we're going to listen to the melody itself all together. For the beat, I dragged and dropped the loop and took it down 3 notes, brought it to G minor. I started with an 808. Follows the root note every single time. I have some rolls in between. Took the velocities down and they're descending. Doing this is actually pretty easy. All you have to do is select the notes that you want to do this to. Then from the velocity tab, you just gotta right click and hold it, kind of move it around until you get whatever you want. I wanted to add something before every bass note change. Just like what I did with the violins, I added a little bit of a roll here before it went from G to F. Then I added a high note here, which took all the attention and gave it to the D sharp. Here, I didn't do anything and the bass note changed it itself because I ended with a really crazy roll pattern, which I'm gonna make you listen to real quick. One big tip for the 808s is that I highly suggest you to use different grids and different types of rolls for beats like this. You have a lot of room for the 808 to go crazy, but don't make it too crazy because then it'll just sound too complex, and this is what it sounds like. Other elements I have is a rim shot, a hi-hat pattern which pretty much follows the melody, and I added a bunch of different notes and rolls in between. Again, same thing with the 808, and this is what it sounds like with the loop. As you can hear, it actually follows the melody, not in terms of notes, but in terms of the bounce. I also have this open hat that follows the 808, and it hits every time the 808 hits. This is what it sounds like with the 808. I do this a lot in beats like this. Make sure to hit the open hat as the same time as the 808. Kind of gives more attention to the 808 itself and adds a little bit of a punch in between. I also have this really easy, simple 2-hit snare with a twist at the end. Most of the times I make sure that my snares are not clashing with anything else. So if I have any other percussion elements or shakers or rim shots, I make sure that they're not clashing with the other things and they're not hitting at the same time. So that's why I came up with a pattern like this. If you actually look at the patterns here, you can see that a lot of things actually fill each other. After the open hat, I have a little bit of a space before the rim shot hits, and that's where I put the snares. And then before these 2 rim shots, I have a crazy roll going on the hi-hat, and then the same thing again and again. So this is pretty much the whole idea of a beat like this, just to fill in the blanks, make sure that not everything is clashing into each other, because if you make a lot of mistakes that you shouldn't do, no matter how good you mix it, it's not gonna sound good. I also have a kick pattern that follows the 808, but it doesn't hit at the same time as the 808 hits. It gives a little bit of a feeling to it. This is pretty much the whole beat. Now I'll make you listen to it. Let me know what you think, comment down below, and thank you. Have a good one.